Do we have my slide that's coming up? Okay, great. So if you want to take a picture of this, this is basically a summary of notes of what Doug just discussed, and I'm adding to it just really quickly, that this is all based on an overall drive to normalize the use of drugs in almost every sphere of life. It is very well funded by the Chinese Communist Party. They're very interested. It's not only fentanyl, it's everything. Yes, George Soros was especially very big in a lot of the passages of laws and states, big pharma, big tobacco, and the drug cartels. Steve Marshall's AG office, I mean, they'll tell you that. It happens all day long. This entered our lives after the 2018 Farm Bill. It's a big loophole. It's only supposed to be hemp harvested at 0.03% dry weight, but they take this and they synthesize the hemp. It's not clean, it's not natural, it's full of chemicals, so they can avoid the Delta 9 marijuana, and they have these different deltas. That just means a certain molecule is on a different portion of a ring. So you're sitting at chair number 1 versus chair number 9 versus chair number 7 at that table. It's still this chemical, which is psychoactive and still damaging. And then he mentioned these 4 points of resistance you might make. These are quick rebuttals because we have to continue to address things at the federal, state, and local level. When someone wants to say, oh, it's about freedom, we have to remind ourselves that we are conservatives. We are not libertines or of the Libertarian Party. There is a necessity that if we're going to be a free people, you have to be able to exercise your own liberty with a sober mind and self-controlled character. Otherwise, no one is free. Addiction means slavery. So no, it's not about freedom. It's about money for the corporations. Number 2, well, we want to support small business. Well, right now, you know what I have to say, like J.D. Vance did the other day in his interview, I really don't care. Really don't care about your business that's depending on addiction and the harms that come to people. When we like to support small business, we're supporting creators, innovators, people that help change the world and make a difference in people's lives for the better. So your small business needs just really don't matter to me. Number 3, they say, what about the vets, those in pain, those who are suffering? This is typical out of the playbook, like the medical marijuana industry. We have so much data now, so much science that shows none of this is ever helpful for curing anything. It cures nothing. It can actually just increase chronic disease, suffering, pain, and or death, and problems for other people. Number 4, they want to bring out the epileptic children, and that is just a straight up lie. It does not help. I have a child with epilepsy. There's no way any neurologist in their right mind would say, go to the gas station and get your gas station weed to help your poor child with epilepsy. No one will ever advise you to do that, okay? That's in their right mind. So what can you do? Federally, you need to lobby your House members, your senators, that we need to close the loophole in the Farm Bill. They'll know what that means. We've been working on that for a long time. UForm has been heavily lobbying that. They are supposed to re-up the Farm Bill last year. It's been delayed and delayed, so we need to keep that pressure. If we can get the loophole closed at the federal level, the downstream will be all across the country. And that would be awesome. We can close a lot of these gas station weed places and these little smoke shops with all their stuff. And then at the state level, we do need to ban all hemp products with a concentration greater than 0.03%. Florida got this passed really well last year. There were some complications. They're going to try again. So at the state level, we really got to get this out. And then local, start talking to your city council, your county commissioners, and just say you're tired of these smoke shops. You're tired of the gas station weed places. I'm telling you, your school superintendents, your principals, your assistant principals, your teachers at public schools, Christian schools, private schools, and even your homeschool co-ops, they are being flooded with these little vape pens that have all the THC or even the nicotine in it, and there are kids using it in the classroom, in the bathrooms, as early as 6th grade. And their minds are getting fried, their personalities are changing considerably. I was speaking to a family court judge out of Shelby County just yesterday about this problem, and she said, Christine, there was a case of a 90-pound girl. It took 5 officers to subdue her. She was that crazy, and it was all from the THC Delta 8 or 10 or 0 vape pens. This is a crisis for us. So, I think that's all I got.
Okay, I have We can take a couple of questions.
Couple questions,
And
okay.
I didn't get the chance to introduce Christine Carr.
Oh.
She is such a blessing to our organization. She is a nurse.
Anesthetist.
I can never say that word. She brings you back. That people want to say, oh, you're the one that puts me to sleep. And she says, no, I'm the one that wakes you up.
Also,
So-
it's job security.
Yeah, so she does a great job, but she really got in this marijuana fight. And as you saw in the slide this morning, one of our greatest victories was protecting the unborn from marijuana. Christine Carr is the one that made that happen. If you want to know anything about marijuana, THC, Delta 9 is the one that's illegal. 8 and 10 are legal, and you can get them at the vape shops and all over the place, in the gas stations. But she's the one to talk to, and she's really good with everything. Does anyone have a question? Because line up here, we've got a quick. Kimberly.
Can you speak to how, because I thought the law that was passed a couple years ago was held up because of lawsuits and things like that. So how is it that Delta 8 and all the things are legal in the source?
Very good question. So that thing held up with lawsuits, that's dealing with the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission. That's the medical marijuana law that was passed in 2021, allowing the true marijuana, Delta 9 marijuana, to be used for so-called medical purposes. That set up the AMCC, the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission, which really should just be called the Marijuana Commission because they're only dealing with marijuana. But yes, that's going to be like the pot dispensaries and people getting the medical marijuana. The Delta 8, Delta 10 is coming from the hemp plant. And hemp was legalized in 2018 with the Farm Bill, but it was meant for industrial purposes, you know, your fibers and all those other types of things. But they only required it to be less THC levels less than 0.03% dry weight at harvest. Well, you can take that plant and harvest it and do a whole lot of things, and when you get your end product, nothing is regulated. So they're finding when you do random testing, there's Delta 9 marijuana in there. And then there's the synthetically altered hemp plant, levels higher than any package insert tells you. That's how they're getting it. That's how they're getting this Delta 8, Delta 10. It's from the hemp legalization, and they followed into that loophole. And kids are using it all the time. Yeah.
Great clarification.
This is not a leading question. I'm ignorant about the topic.
Yeah.
When we talk about marijuana and so-called medicinal marijuana,
Right.
Then we talk about pharmacological products, and that's very specific QC, quality assurance, quality control guidelines around there. Is there really such a thing as medical marijuana or medicinal marijuana?
Very good question. Very good question. There is there's something called, you can call medical cannabinoids, and those are FDA approved products that you can get prescribed by a physician. You can pick it up from a pharmacy, and insurance will cover it. Now it is synthetic, but it's going to be pure. So you know when you have a marijuana plant and it's going to have 450 different chemicals, there's no way you can test truly for safety and efficacy when you have 450 different variables, right? So when you have actually true medical cannabinoids, the FDA-approved drugs like Epidiolex or Marinol, Sesamet, Syndros, those have been tested. They only have 1 or 2 active ingredients. So yes, those are medical cannabinoids. What the legislature passed in 2021, unfortunately, the medical marijuana, is they're using the whole plant marijuana, and that's different from what you can get from the pharmacy. And it's not well regulated. There's not been one single state in the union that's been able to successfully regulate and test for and control their marijuana products. And, you know, I guess we're trying, but there we go. Yes, thanks, Stuart.
Hey, I think that July 31st of last year, JAMA published a report of 442,000 Americans surveyed. And the trust in doctors and hospitals between March of 2020 and January last year has plummeted from 72% to 40%. I think it's less than that. I couldn't believe they published it.
Right.
But the whole point is our legislators have been listening to the Hospital Association and the Medical Association to the detriment of all of us, including them. And I know our group of doctors has treated COVID with dozens of these legislative leaders, yet they won't do the right thing. Why won't they do the right thing on this? regarding marijuana because, good news, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not supportive of it.
Thank you for that updated news. I was kind of a little concerned about, I love him, but I was a little concerned about that. So, Dr. Tankersley, what happened in 2021 in the legislative session, we were very much involved with COVID going on. If you remember, no one could get into the State House without being forced to wear a mask. You hardly had anybody going there. There was lobbyists. And there was a physician or a former physician who was pushing this bill who had lots of access, but very biased and incomplete information that he was giving to legislators. And so previously, when they kept trying to get this bill passed, in every legislative session, you had school officials showing up, pediatricians showing up, nurses, they got it shut down every time. But under the cover of COVID, this legislation just started to kind of work its way through. You know, I was living in New Orleans at the beginning part of that time. My son, we needed to take him to New Orleans for very specialized treatment, hyperbaric oxygen therapy for brain injury. And I came back home just rejoicing that he was healed and doing so much better. And it was right after the Senate passed this bill when I found out about it. And I said, say what? Like, you know, what is Alabama doing? You know, my youngest daughter, the other day before I heard about this, she said, I'm so glad we live in Alabama. It's because we, you know, left New Orleans coming home, right? We were so relieved. The air smelled so much better in Alabama than living in, you know what I mean? And then I heard this going, and that's when I got in the fight. And it basically became, it was under the cover of COVID. When I started to educate the public after it passed, Kay Ivey would not listen. We found out later she did receive a $100,000 donation from an aspiring pot farmer in this process. And so when I started to educate legislators and the public after the passage, many of the legislators said, we didn't know that. Nobody told us that. Oh my goodness. And that's kind of where we are. So I think when you were talking about treating patients with COVID, we also got some unfortunate legislation slid into the statute. So hopefully we'll get things changed.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Great job as always.